Good evening. As you saw in the video, I flew to Israel in 2007 in order to volunteer to the Israeli Defense Forces. The day I finished training, a war broke out between Israel and Gaza, known as Operation Cast Lead. I spent weeks on the border of Gaza with little sleep or rest. My unit and I were the targets of over 100 rockets and mortars. As my platoon prepared itself to enter Gaza, I started to think about my mother. She had no idea I was fighting a war. I had lied, telling her that I was nowhere near the battle and that the army had my unit washing dishes. I didn't want her to worry. As I was debating whether or not to call her and to tell her the truth, I was struck by a mortar that severed my left and dominant arm from my body. I stayed awake throughout the entire ordeal and remember every gruesome detail. From the moment I woke up after the surgeries, there was only one thought going through my mind. I wanted to go back to combat. It wasn't an easy decision, and the response of the high-ranking officials who came to visit me in the hospital was that I should continue with my life, that combat was no longer an option for me. That wasn't enough to deter me. I had learned a new trait from the Israelis called persistence. I continued to push until I met the former general of Southern Command, Yoav Gallant, who told me, okay, if you going back to combat makes sense, then we will make it happen. It took me over a year of recovery before I was able to attempt my goal, and I won't lie, it wasn't easy. I had to relearn how to shoot, load, and unjam my rifle. I had to retrain myself how to jump over a 7-foot wall, climb rope, and crawl, all while wearing full combat gear. I even had to figure out how to pull out grenade pins with my teeth. During 1 week of retraining, I had almost reached my breaking point. We had been marching for days in the freezing cold weather and the pouring rain. We wore heavy packs, and my feet were torn to bits. I wanted to give up. One of my officers, a lieutenant named Ziv Shilon, reminded me that anything is possible if we put our minds to it. He helped me snap out of my self-pity. It wasn't long before I reached my goal, and I was once again a combat soldier. After a few months on active duty, I was chosen as a candidate for commander training. I took the grueling 4-month course and became the first soldier to complete it with such a severe disability. I finished my service leading a squad of 13 soldiers through their combat training. My active military service has been completed for over a year, but I continue to serve as a reservist in an elite unit within the paratroopers. A month ago, I met a few of the soldiers that I had trained. They told me the horrors that they experience day to day on the border of Gaza. They have been the target of many mortar shells that exploded only tens of feet away. One of my soldiers had to bear witness as an improvised explosive device took off the hands of his officer by the bordering fence. This very same officer, who is now fighting to recover in rehabilitation, is none other than Ziv Shilon, the same lieutenant who gave me hope when I had reached my breaking point during training. My soldier showed me a picture of Ziv in the hospital. Even though he looked drained and physically weak, with his face covered in burns and scars, he was draped in an Israeli flag, and he was smiling. My soldier explained that Ziv had asked for every soldier in the unit to see his smiling face and to hear his message. Never give up hope, and never stop fighting for what is right. It wasn't long after Ziv's injury that Operation Pillar of Defense broke out. I was called up to reserve duty, and I joined the ranks of soldiers preparing to enter Gaza. Although the Israeli government decided not to send us in, I was reminded how quickly the situation in Israel can deteriorate and how psychologically tolling it is to be a combat soldier. I know how lucky I am to be alive, and I know how lucky I am to be standing here now instead of fighting a war in Gaza. I want to thank you all for coming here today and for supporting the many heroes like Ziv and my soldiers who tirelessly stand guard on the border of Israel, keeping our homeland safe. Thank you.